Welcome to Creatively Exposed, a conversation for creatives, introverts, sapiosexuals, and all of the people entertained and who love us. I am 𝗦𝗣𝗘𝗧, the podcast host, poet, writer, and overall Afro-Caribbean Latina creative. I know that is a mouthful, but welcome to the show. Welcome back to Creatively Exposed, and happy Monday, happy March, happy new month. We have made it to the last month of the quarter, and if that stresses you out, it's okay, because March is legit the actual astrological new year. I just want to let you know. A lot of heaviness in January. Interesting stuff in February. I legit spoke for like almost 30 minutes and dead ass silence. So here we are again. I'm going to test this out and try it again. So I had an honor to go to Flourish Media Conference, Women Who Do Business, and I was surrounded by Black women and women of color, people of color, let's say, to be inclusive. And when I tell you it was the most nurturing, inspiring, supportive, healing, it's like I found a home. And when I think of business, many times it has been just the financial aspect of it instead of the passion, the authenticity, the truth lived within these businesses, the people behind the business. And I got to see and live that for those 2 days. And the first day I was hyped because as an introvert, I thought I was going to be exhausted, but it's just communing with people that look like you feels like refilling your cup. At least for me, that's what that is, right? Discussions, conversations, lunchtimes with strangers. Like, this is really outside of my comfort zone. I don't do that normally at all. And so to commune in sisterhood has allowed me to be present, to be okay with being vulnerable, to have enough space within myself to hold space. It's been a ride. Last week has been a delicious ride because I am moving into, feeling my feelings and being okay with feelings. And how do you talk to me like, I don't know, 2 years ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Get those feelings out of here. But, therapy and talking and inner child work goes a long way. I also really enjoyed and was able to delight in another vulnerable space. And this time it was the men. There was an Empower Men conference here in South Florida, and at the end of the conference, I got to go to the poetry event. So I was in an all-women's conference, and then we moved into all-men spaces. And it's so yummy. Seeing a Black men, first of all, be creative. You all know this is called Creatively Exposed for a reason. I love creative people. vulnerable people, especially people of color, even more so Black people, being themselves and being able to just be their best, highest, flawed self. So there were 4 really dope poets that but they spoke to me. Sorry, I got a message and it's important. They recited their poetry and then had a discussion about the poetry, the poem, the emotions behind the poem. And I just felt like that was so... My cup was full. Like it runneth over, because I got so much emotional nurturing that whole weekend, that I would love to relive it again. It allowed me to be in this time and space instead of wondering about tomorrow. I tend to live in the future. And in between meditating, I didn't do all of the days, but I did do the 21-day Chopra situation meditating experience. It's a free experience for 21 days. And that, man, meditation can sound very abstract, but if you can find stillness for any time, 5 minutes, if you can do 15 minutes, some of those meditations are like 20 minutes, and I'm just like, bro, how long this thing gonna last? I got things to do and places to go. So between meditation and being in these amazing spaces of vulnerability and open communication and just living and speaking and having people express their truth in a way where they can feel safe to do so, I think there's power in that. There is healing in that. And so I was overjoyed and excited last weekend for sure. Fast forward to this weekend. Actually, it was a really dope week. I'm not even gonna trip. But this is the time. The sand is running out of the time thing. Sand, time. If you remember what that thing is, kudos to you. I always forget, and it's probably the simplest thing. Anyway, moving forward. Next week, Sunday. So a week from today. My window's open, so you might hear some stuff. A week from today, Soliloquy of an Ice Queen is out into the world. When I tell you I am just over and under and sideways to the moon, I am. I totally am. Until then, self-publishing is a hot, wonderfully hellish roller coaster. It's inspiring, it's empowering, and it's confusing. And there's always more to learn, but I guess that is also life, right? And so, there are things that it may have been very simple to somebody else. I probably should have researched more. So I've had some struggles figuring out how distribution works and what does it look like, figuring out covers and requirements, and I'm a one-woman show in many ways, right? So I had done a chapbook last year through Blurb, and I totally winged it. I did have, my poems in there, but it's rather, in my opinion, it's short and it's simple, and I just did it to do it and see what happens and learn. This book is so much longer and a lot of pages, and I wanted to go the thorough self-publishing route. There are still things that I would like to change, but who cares? We're growing and moving forward. But I had to do some last minute changes, and I still have changes left to do. Now, I'm not doing those things because I actually want to have an episode today. And so I've been meeping. Meep is my, they is my self-publishing meme Muppet icon lifestyle. Only for self-publishing. I've been meeping and figuring out some stuff, and there are requirements for other things, so I've been a little stressed. Just, a little. I had to meditate and light some incense and open the window and look out the window for a little while because, I went to sleep at like 2:40 in the morning configuring something. And so now I have special edition books that have already been printed without these changes. Wunderbar. That's wonderful. But hey, it's a learning experience. And regardless, I am proud and will celebrate this. And it's going to be lit AF next week. I'm thinking of doing a live on my regular Instagram. That's at LysFlo, LYSCFLO, if you want to come stare at me and do, whatever it is that I'm going to do that day besides celebrate. If y'all got questions, let's do that. I think everything should be celebrated. I'm that person. I like to celebrate birthdays. You took a step that you never thought you were going to take. I am the cheerleading friend. And I'm doing my best to be that for myself as well. So this book has versions of me that I'm proud to say no longer exist. And maybe there's little, shreds of it, right? But there's a lot of, as I was editing and reading, there was a lot of sorrow and heaviness and self-worth struggles that I had at the time. And everything is ongoing, and that's what I was discussing with one of my besties, is that healing is not an exit sign on the highway that you get to. Healing is an ongoing process, because once you figured out one thing, there's something else, and that's life, right? And to have healed these parts of me, and I think there are still things that I may relate to, but overall, to not be affected by what I wrote as much as when I was writing it. There are tears in this book. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of hardship and